Do you want a closer background rather than a table? What would you prefer? I literally just plonked myself down with 3 drinks. I've got coffee, plain water, and lemon water, just in case.
What's the difference between the regular water and the lemon water?
Well, one has lemon in it, Katie.
Well, other than the obvious with...
The lemon water is hot.
Gotcha.
They all do different lubrications.
Welcome everyone back to the Miss Art World podcast. I am your host, Catherine. I am my co-host here with me, Samuel Cooksey with Samuel Cooksey Project. Welcome, Samuel.
Howdy, everybody.
Great.
Howdy.
And then we have a super special guest today. I'm really excited to talk to her. It is Katie from... Is your whole thing Welcome to the Brightside? That's your
whole thing. Welcome to the Brightside.
Welcome to the Brightside.
And I have kind of two different entities, actually probably 3 different entities off of that. So I've got Miss Brightside, which is my fine art practice. And then I steal the Brightside, and then I become Katie Brightside. I don't know who I'm called. I'm kind of everybody.
And you are a world traveler. I was listening to, you have a couple podcasts on your website, which was really helpful. And they went into kind of where you started and where you traveled to and how you came to Hollywood, which is a very interesting story that if you could share with us, that would be great.
It was a kind of like, if I can kind of sum it up in my short space of time, I went to university, and my first job out of university was working for the United Colours of Benetton in Italy. So as a 21-year-old, I arrived in Italy, not being able to speak Italian. I realized quite soon that I couldn't get very far in my fashion career without being good at Italian. So I decided to move countries to an English-speaking country because, yeah, I'm lazy. I didn't want to put the hard work in, and then arrived in Australia. And then after 10 years of living in Australia, I realized it was one of those places. I mean, there's a band called Jet, and they had to come to America to make it big before they were accepted back in Australia. So I kind of had the same philosophy. So I went back to the UK after being estranged for 11 years. Did my master's in fine art, dabbled in the south of France for about 9 months, and then I moved to America. And I moved to Los Angeles in particular because by this point I've lived in 3 countries, and I was decided to speak to a white witch who does natal chart readings to say where I would be happy. And she said Ethiopia or the West Coast of America. So because I've been working in the realms of Hollywood and the female identity, that was kind of like, I'm going to move to LA. And I didn't know anyone. I arrived in West Hollywood and had a glorious first morning, met a guy, got a job. It was like the American dream crazy. It was great.
Well, you got a job the first morning?
Yeah.
Have it set up already? Or
No.
you were walking down the street and he was like, you're gonna...
I just met my Airbnb host had a connection, and I became friends with that interior designer, and I got work straight away, which basically formed Welcome to the Brightside. Mm-hmm. So I guess what I'm saying is the white witch that I consulted was completely right, because I've never had it that fluky before. You know, when I arrived in Australia, I didn't have a job, and I got a job within about 10 days. So, I mean, I'm used to being on the back foot and running forward, but I didn't expect meeting a guy, building a company on my first day.
Yeah. What's the name of the white witch? Because I need to go talk to her.
Her name is Deb, and I can give you her details. She's amazing. She's amazing. Every time I've done anything in my life, I've always said, like, hey Deb, what do you think about this?
Mhm.
And she always gives good advice.
Did you know Deb beforehand, or were you like, hey, I want to speak to someone about my life, and just randomly found her?
No, I had been working with her for about 10 years.
Okay.
An old colleague of mine, they were sister-in-laws. So once I knew that this amazing woman could read your future from these, like, you basically give over your date of birth, the time that you were born, and where you were born. And it was like she read me in 2 seconds from the chart. It was quite amazing.
Wow.
And I think that's quite important. And I think that's why we often seek outside advice like that, because we want someone to understand us. Or, you know, or we often make art so that we can understand ourselves within a situation. But yes, I do like my Deb.
What's your favorite style of art?
My favorite style of art?
Yeah, because on your like Instagram, you have a bunch of different mediums that you use.
Yeah, my Instagram's kind of deceiving. My Instagram's more of what I make money from. Because if I don't know whether you get into these conversations quite a lot, but between the artist and the designer, I would say my Instagram's more of the designer artist version of myself. And my fine art practice is so bizarre. I think they would shut down my Instagram account in 2 seconds.
Do you have a place where your fine art practice lives? Do you have
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. It's Brightside.com.
Okay.
And that's the Miss Brightside part.
Does your designer life and your fine art life ever mix in together? Does it overlap, or is it very much separated?
Initially I would have said years ago it would have been separated. So I trained as a fashion designer and worked in that field for 15 years, and then went back and did my master's in fine art, in which they completely deconstructed me. And I'd kind of gone in with this illustrated portfolio with a performance aspect. And then all of a sudden I just started sewing again. And I thought my fashion days were done. And so by the mere sewing of the masks that I make, so I make some of the body of work is about identity and an identity within relationships. So I make wolf masks that represent ex-lovers. And there is just this bonkers practice. And it's something that I wouldn't necessarily make money from at this stage. It's great to exhibit, great to put, it looks great on the website, but it's just very difficult to sell at this point. So I arrive here with these bags of masks, thinking in the US, thinking that I'm going to be this amazing fine artist, and magic's going to happen, and I'm going to meet Paul McCarthy, which I did in like about a week. My manifestation was super cool, and yeah, I realized I couldn't make. It's going to take a lot longer than just arriving. So the design practice happened from taking the story and the narrative, and then I'm trying to bring that across. So it's the two of them now. So I try to bring the power of storytelling to the artwork. So it's more than just a picture or something designed for a particular thing.
So with the mask, you said that it's from ex-lovers. Is it from the person that you're making the mask for, or is it yours? Or is it a combination of both?
It's the mask. I'm collecting them. So there's I'm hoping to have a retrospective before, so that it will be a huge body of work, and I make them in reflection of those relationships, and I kind of write a piece of poetry that goes with them too.
So if I asked you, do you mind reading a piece of poetry with it? Do you have it
Yeah,
on?
sure.
What about the one you have the mask with the tie? You have the
I haven't written the poem about that one yet.
Oh, did I pick the one?
I'm sometimes a little bit behind the curveball.
What about the one with the it's a kind of looks wolf-like, but also it's very white, kind of a abominable snowman.
Don't have his. I have the one next to it, the one with the USA on it,
Headband.
which was from a Bruce Springsteen concert.
Oh, nice.
So he took me to a Bruce Springsteen concert, and that was one of the things that he bought me. And so I start like putting elements of the clothing and things that they have bought me into these masks.
Oh, cool.
And they're all made from like childhood development fabrics. So like they're like a plushy type thing. So if you look into childhood development theories, when a child screams for the toy, the soft toy, it's orgasmic. And so there's that context that's thrown into my masks as well. Okay, I need to find the poem. This one's called The Wolves That Venture Out of the Woods. See if I can find it.
Because you're right. Like I was kind of thumbing through before we were talking, I was going through your other side, and you're completely right. There's one side that's different than your art side.
Yeah.
Because I was looking at the like welcome to the bright side and kind of going through that and like listening to some of the things you have on there, going through the Instagram. But if you go to katiebrightside.com, you definitely see more like art. I think what people are normally traditionally thinking of art.
So what would you say is more traditional, the fine art practice or the design?
The fine art, like
Yeah.
when I saw this, I was like, oh, this is like, I don't know, it speaks to me more than the design, because the pictures you have on here like are really interesting. You have like a couple where the girls they have the mask on and they're kind of like crawling through different like one's going through a bed. One of the pictures I really like a lot is like one of your first ones called Hole, and it's the girl almost looks like with a clown, a mime face. I would say not a clown, but more of a mime face on. And yeah, it's very interesting.
Well, and I think, Samuel, you have been, how do I say this? You are used to kind of performative, conceptual artwork, whereas I think a lot of people who aren't used to weird art would say that your other site with your wallpaper designs and illustrations are more typical art. But I agree with Samuel, like your site with all of your fine artwork is definitely
I mean, it's like I'm bipolar. I mean, essentially, I mean, they're completely two entities of myself, which is kind of an interesting context within itself. Like, you know, what is right and what is wrong. You know, as you explained to the two of you, actually, just at the beginning of the podcast, you know, Samuel is here to make those questions. You would be then my design side, and Catherine would be my art side. So it's just like, I know I'm not palatable is katiebrightside.com to the masses, and that's just going to take a lot of work to kind of bring that into fruition. And because it's so personal, you know, you also, as a development, you have to get yourself into a state to be prepared for the knockdowns that come with being so personal. So I guess I'm in a building stage that I'm evolving to be able to cope with the backlash that comes with that. You know, because I'm basically making artwork about sleeping with men and I'm documenting them as trophies, which is, you know, it's kind of, a bit out there. Not for all mothers. I'm still trying to find the poem.
So when I'm looking at the picture with the girl with the curlers in her hair, and she has nice jewelry on, and then she has the white face. Is it, when you were doing that, was it supposed to, the white face, be more mime-like or more clown-like? Because to me, it
I
looks more mime, like she's has to be quiet or like silent.
there's a video that goes with those
Oh, there is.
pictures, and it's called Car Wash. And I have a friend who has been a daytime actor for many years, and he was saying that the 5 o'clock in the morning ritual is called the car wash, where you get in the chair, you have your makeup done, and it's just kind of this rigmarole of daily. And I had been working with two identities, Marilyn Monroe and Snow White. So you've got the fictional purity and the over-sexualized female. So my character is a combination of those two, leaning towards Marilyn a lot more, but definitely with the vulnerability of Snow White. So the car wash is, the film is 3 songs about a woman getting ready for a date. And she's putting her makeup onto camera. And then you see her emotions go through the 3 different songs. And I actually use Someday My Prince Will Come as the last song. I think, is it the last song? One of the last songs, but you get the whole point. And then those are just stills of the makeup, and it's part of a larger body. I mean, they get quite self-destructive in the movie. I think I kind of claw at my face.
Would you consider that part of your performative aspect of your fine artwork? Because I know that you have done performance. Is that kind of how you would say is your performance art, or is that video artwork to you?
Yeah, that's a difficult question. I mean, I perform to camera a bit like Cindy Sherman. So there's that kind of, the audience is this fake, and you don't know how many people are going to see it. I really actually struggle. I know that you do performance work and you do it exceptionally well. I struggle letting my guard down, and I struggle, am I performing or am I being real? And I guess you can take that back into the mask work that I make. You know, I make these works and I put all these different masks, all my face is painted. So I'm hiding behind stuff, but I really struggle in the performance space live. Mm-hmm. How do you get beyond that?
I think I have that same struggle in performance art if I'm have to be vocal. And Samuel and I have talked about this before, but we grew up as mimes. Like, my dad trained us as this like mime family, and we would go perform all over the place for huge crowds. And so if I don't have to speak, I'm so comfortable. But once I'm forced to open up my mouth and say something, it's a whole nother form of anxiety that I struggle with. And I need to put that more into my performance art, because like you were saying, where it becomes more real, like who you are. If I'm forced to talk, I feel like that's showing myself too much. Whereas if I am just performing without speaking, I can hide behind that. I don't know if that makes sense.
Well, as Katie was saying, she's talking about the mask. Is the mask being you or not? And I think, Catherine, you associate being quiet with a mime face, so you can hide behind, you know.
And that is my mask.
That is your mask.
Yeah. That's so fascinating. Your childhood sounds amazing.
It was fun. And I tend to be very shy. So I think that really helped me be able to perform. Without that, I don't know if I would have been able to be a performance artist.
Yeah. I mean, I always think about, like, just to quickly change the subject, about the silent movies and the transition between the silence and the speakies. And, you know, some actresses just didn't make it. And that's quite interesting, that kind of changeover, because obviously their voice, or whether they got dubbed, and, you know, I'm still trying to figure that. I don't even know when I'm on camera, I'm still being authentic. And in my personal life, I'm trying to live one stable person, if I can possibly be, and not try and change to different circumstances. And I guess that's why I started working with masks, to try and figure out all these different identities. And when I'm putting on, you know, if a cute guy walks in, am I like, you know, like a bit more flavorsome? Well, what am I doing? How am I behaving? So, because at the end of the day, we only have our most authentic self. So if we could be that all the time, we would be probably maybe more successful in different areas of our life. So I don't know how I can transition that to film just yet. I think with Car Wash, because the film was so focused on my face, I'm trying. I think that's probably my most successful video piece, but I'm still trying to work with that and trying to be at one with the camera. But then as for putting an audience in front of that, I think I would completely freak out.
Do you think that the mask itself is just like a piece of you that's more like loud? It kind of makes the other parts of you quiet, and then that one piece that you're showing with the mask is more vibrant, so maybe that's why it doesn't feel like it's necessarily you?
I think that too, and I think they can also be violent too. I think, you know, we all try and hide our anger and frustrations, and I think that can come out in those masks too. That we don't necessarily they're definitely all reflections of me, and like how I felt in those relationships, how that person, they're not necessarily, I'm not being evil towards that person at all, or being malicious or trying to hurt that person. It's just, I'm leaving a piece of me behind, or I'm reflecting on a piece of me that no longer serves me, or maybe I found something in that relationship that I also want to celebrate. So they're definitely an evolution. I mean, some of the recent masks are really insane, and they're not on the website yet, but they're just, they're vulgar. That, you know, again, they started off naive, you know, like the if you're looking at the trophies piece, the one at the top, you know, he's very sweet and very small and adorable, and then they start becoming, as you know, disillusioned. And
so you're a lot of times the female in the pictures is wearing the wolf mask. Is it the mask they put on to attract that male, or is it showing more of the male is forcing that female to be what they're looking for?
oh, I like those questions. I think you'll find that they are me being the wolf. I'm the wolf. You know, and again, that's the evolution from Snow White to Marilyn. You know, she's definitely a wolf, she-wolf.
So then you are the one hunting the man in this. So then it's you taking on the persona that wolf wants in order to get your prey.
You could say that.
Okay.
You could say that. This is where then the design comes back in. I did a piece for the Farmer's Daughter Hotel for their restaurant, and I did a male and female mural scale wallpaper. And I decided to write a poem that reflected two sides of a persona of a woman. And the female restroom is this really cutesy teacup, picture perfect, but you start to see like some handcuffs and some naughty aspects in that wallpaper. And then when you go into the male restroom, it's like full on crazy. There's a naked man wolf running around. There are underwear left all over the forest. So there's pants sunny side up, there's garters hung on things. So going back to the question that you asked earlier, there are some projects that I get to really bring my fine art practice to places. But what's great about the hotel, the Farmer's Daughter, is that used to be a rent by the hour motel. So I could draw on the history of this naughtiness and, you know, prowessness, and really sing that from my point of view. But the poem's quite fun. I haven't found that one either, but yeah. And it really goes into about a breakdown of a relationship and how depressed one can feel when they are not being liberated by one's partner, and how the wolf, me, is looking outside and seeing other wolves run around and wants to go and frolic in the forest with them.
And that's a wallpaper, you said?
It's two wallpapers. So that will be on welcometothebrightside.com under the Farmer's Daughter, and you'll see the two of those.
Okay. How do you create wallpaper? Do you do it on the computer and then like blow it up? Like, I have no idea how you would even start.
Again, the person that I found my first day, that was my second job in LA. I had never done it before. So I was like, how do I do this? Obviously you measure the scale of the walls that you need to do. My file ends up being the scale of the wraparound of the walls, or unless it's a repeat. And then I just illustrate things either in hand. My style with my design stuff is there's whimsical hand drawings and then strong vector art. So you've got this cross between these two things, which is definitely something that's been in my work for a long time. So, and then I scan it in and then I send it to the printer and they print it out, and then an installer puts it up. Ta-da!
So could someone buy your actual wallpaper if they wanted to put it up somewhere?
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
And what's interesting about your wallpaper, and it's on your Instagram, and I think you have it on your YouTube, it's all hand drawn. It's not. Yeah. So every piece of it, she does by hand, which I in my head, I was thinking that you would do it on the computer. So I think it's super impressive that you're doing everything by hand.
Yeah. And
you talked a little bit about why you liked wallpaper so much. And it was something to do with your mom.
Yes. Yeah, no. I don't know whether it was the same in America as it was in England, but like this whole home renovation used to happen. Like, even if you didn't have money, just every couple of years, they'd slowly move around a different area of the house. So like, you know, in 1984, it would be the kitchen. In 1985, it would be the lounge. In 1986, it would be the study space. And every time we would go around, you know, wallpaper was quite, I'm showing my age, was quite famous in the 80s. It launched on from the 70s was the pinnacle of wallpaper. Everything was wallpapered. My installer says that during the 70s, people were wallpapering cupboards, doors, like everything. Like, it was just kind of, and you can start actually seeing that come back, actually, is a big fashion right now. But going back to my mum, we'd go to the DIY center and we'd be looking at wallpapers, and what my mum was trying to look for, and this is really clever, she's an accountant, so she counts things in relation to design, which, you know, you wouldn't necessarily think she was creative, but she's super creative. So you'd be looking and like the bowl of cherries, for instance, and where that bowl of cherries repeats on the wallpaper. And obviously home phones back then were on a lead. And so if she sat in the kitchen on the phone, she doesn't want to sit there talking to Auntie Keris, counting where the cherries are. She needs them to be as far apart as they possibly can. So I was taught from a young age to look for the most intricate wallpapers. Weird.
Yeah.
So we'd be going around like, oh no, that one, the repeat on that is terrible. Oh no, that one's a really good one. The cherries are in the right place for that. It's a step repeat. So that's another thing that in my wallpapers, I try and make super complicated for the repeats so that no one could ever get bored.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's awesome. So your mom kind of created you doing wallpaper, at least a skill to make these really awesome wallpaper pieces.
Yeah. And the thing is that the penny didn't sink with that until like 5 years into making wallpapers. It's just like, oh, okay. It was a conversation like this I was having with someone. And then I realized, oh, she's a genius. She kind of stuck it in my subconscious somewhere.
So Katie said you did it by hand. Does that mean you just take a picture or you scan it in? Like, how does that?
Yeah, scan it in. So my process is like, I draw, say the butterfly, I scan the butterfly in, I print the butterfly out, I watercolor it up, scan it back in, and then place it in with Photoshop.
Oh, okay.
So that's pretty much in a nutshell how I work. And then I will do vector drawing. So I will then redraw my vector drawings. So on one of the recent mural scale ones, there's a skull in it that took me a week to redraw on vector because I draw all my mistakes in from my hand drawings so that they don't necessarily look like vector art. There's nothing wrong with vector art in particular. It's just, to me, it's quite predictable. Soulless.
Well, I like one thing I like with art a lot of times is the mistakes in it. I think it really shows, especially when an artist leaves it in there. It's them going through and building upon what they're drawing or what they're painting, and doing things like that. Just like performance pieces. When you go and see performance pieces, the performance is almost always different because they're not putting on a play. It's a piece of art, and art change or speak differently depending on who's watching it, and it's a part of the artist, not necessarily the people in the performance.
Going back to your fine art practice, would you say that the masks are the most current series, and is it ongoing? Are you still creating masks as you find lovers? And do your lovers know that you create masks? I don't know if it's during or after the relationships ends. I don't know how that goes.
I kind of give them the heads up before anything happens. Like, hey, you do realize I'm going to document you in this. And they're like, they don't really understand. And then they're kind of quite proud. And then they just hate me for it afterwards. The ultimate goal is to meet a guy I want to keep. So it's not like I'm just collecting them just to it is to kind of cement, which is why I joke about having the retrospective. So, you find the husband, the series ends. And then, it's like with your work, it's like, it's wonderful to watch you evolve being a mom and your work change as your body changes, as the different view and perspective of what a mother should be. It's wonderful to see that. Like I hope to kind of assimilate that into mine as I meet my husband and have a child, and like, how does that look? But I mean, I can only work with the tools that I have right now and what I'm trying to understand. And it's about living as a liberated woman with equal rights today. And I'm not promoting feminism. That's not my cause. I'm just trying to understand being a female and wanting to be treated as an equal sexually as a male. And it's still not. It's far beyond. There's a lot of And I've ended up working over the years with groups, like male groups that are working in the area of being more successful with women, so kind of the dating scene. So I've kind of watched it from the other field, because I didn't want to just be a woman making this story. I also want to understand the men's situation. And 15 years ago I read Neil Strauss's The Game, and then I reverse psychologically worked The Game, if you possibly can, and deconstructed that, and went on like 200 dates in a year, and was that's where it happened in my personal life, which is really funny how my works ended up going that way. And then the work with the male group was quite, as an eye-opener. I don't want to alienate men.
It's nice that you're interested in understanding the male perspective. I think that is a very interesting aspect of how you're approaching this concept.
Well, and often we, and it's trying to understand what love is, not just sex, but what love is. And I'm at a point where love to me is a reflection of how the other person makes me feel. In fact, it's almost that the other person is not even important. So I can't love someone else unless I love myself. So yeah, I'm just broadening, but then how do you reflect that back in work? I'm learning by doing, is I guess.
I have a question about the Rainbow Party Mail 2017. What made you come up with the Rainbow Party? So can you explain the piece for the people that won't or can't see it, since they're not next to a computer?
It was actually, the LA Arts Association, they were doing a call out for queer arts, and just for their annual exhibition. And because I'd been working in the realm of plushies with the, the masks and the materiality, I thought I would make penis and boob flags that were in the LGBT color range. So they literally are in the spectrum of, again, the LGBTQ flag is primary and secondary. So again, childhood colorization. So each, I think there's 36 boobs and 36 penises. The penises rattle and the boobs squeak. So if you were,
that's cool.
and they're hung using spreader bars that I bought from the pleasure chest. So again, using sexual instruments to hang those flags.
Can I ask a quick question? What's a spreader bar? I actually have.
I think you for the people that are only listening to this, I'm going to do my best way, but I'm kind of actioning it out at the same time. I think the spreader bar is you get handcuffed, or you get gripped to the spreader bar, and you go round. You have to have your arms apart at the whole point all the time.
Okay.
If you've ever watched is it The Secretary with Maggie Gyllenhaal? She wears one, and she's got like a gag in her mouth. He makes her walk around the office space, but it's supposed to be debilitating that you basically can't use your hands.
Because it's like a rod, right?
Yeah. To me, it just looked like something that you hang up. I didn't actually catch that it was something sexual until you said it. With the
yeah. So and I kind of like using those things in the work that you wouldn't necessarily assume. But then don't forget, sexual hardware has actually just come out of hardware. It's just got repackaged and repurposed so that it can be used in the bedroom scenario. So, in the old days, they would just go to a DIY store, pick up a piece of metal, but now they charge $80 for them.
Yeah.
Pleasure chest for something you can pay for like $5 down the road from, Home Depot.
So do you still have these pieces? Are these pieces up? The Rainbow Party, both of
Yeah,
them?
they're in my closet, which is hilarious.
Because they're really
Yeah.
interesting to look at. Like the female one has like a nipple piercing with a chain that goes to a couple or two
Yeah.
boobs.
Yeah.
And then like the males have cock rings on them.
Yeah.
I guess they're nipple clamps. There you go.
Nipple, that's it. Yeah. No, the form of them when they're together is so beautiful, and I mean I really love them. And I made a surplus and did a collaboration project with a painter in which we then nailed the penises and the boobs to the painting during like an inclusive type of performance art. And it was really interesting watching people pick up the boob or the penis, make the joke, then nail it in. It was actually quite delightful watching people's reaction. And actually, I quite like that element of performance when you bring the public in and watch them feel that range of emotions. I then also did the same like kind of performance-esque at a party where I wrote a sign that said the land, forgive me, is it the land of the free, home of the brave?
Yes.
I did a hand-painted sign, and again, you had to pick up the boob or the penis and nail it into that. It was during, and there was the option of putting the Trump mask on as well. Again, in the rounds of the LGBT community conversation, and I managed to get, what's his name? Who's the porn star that hangs around the strip? I've got a picture of him nailing one in, which was quite funny.
Male? Is it Ron?
Male. Ron Jeremy, yes. I've got a picture of Ron Jeremy nailing a penis into the sign, which is wonderful.
Yeah.
What and I know COVID is happening, but have you been able to do any of your artwork lately? Have you been able to show it anywhere?
I've been lucky during COVID. I mean, I had created a new business model before COVID, and then so the whole of COVID, I was allowed, or gave me the permission to illustrate everything. So I think I got through about 300 illustrations during that time, and created a new business. I've been lucky to show at Tag Gallery in a couple of shows. I also hung my new business model outside a hotel in the city in West Hollywood. So yeah, I've been pretty busy this year, being able to get some work in some places, and also clients have been buying work and that's been installed. So I guess this time's been perfect. I mean, if you're a clever artist, this is magical time.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, have you been apart from obviously making a baby and having a baby and doing all those things, have you managed to find more time, or have you been restricted?
I haven't done performance because and I could do it online, but I've taken this time to really go back to my roots a little bit and do some painting and some mixed media work. So I'm actually really enjoying that aspect of just, instead of trying to figure out how can I make and show pieces as much as possible in 1 year, I'm just taking the time to enjoy the creating process. And I've actually really thought that it's been helpful for me to not have that I have to exhibit all the time stress on myself.
Yeah. And we do. And then you almost lose the magic because you're putting pressure onto yourself to perform, literally, which, is hard. I mean, yeah.
Is there a time that you decided that you were an artist? Like growing up, did you always have this connection to doing art? Or is there a certain time that you were just kind of doing art the whole time, and then you kind of woke up one day and was like, oh, I am an artist?
It was a kind of a funny route. Like my grandfather was a graphic designer and taught me to paint. And I had a piece published at 8 years old on the front of a magazine. But I never thought I could draw, which is what I associated being an artist with, which is weird. And I was always insecure about my drawing abilities. So when I was about 9, I think I wanted to become an actress and a singer and a performer. About 12, I realized I was really bad at it, all of it. But what I really loved was the costumes. So I'd love getting on stage and making all the costumes. I'd mime a lot of the time because my singing is so bad. But I mean, I just like being on stage. I like that element of showbiz. And so then it was an evolution to become a fashion designer. And I love fashion. I think that's my first heartbeat. But I think in some ways I'm more of a costume designer or a boutique fashion design. Like I'm like a one-off artist, not a production line. And it took me a long way to get there. Excuse me, I have a frog. So yeah, so the art thing came because I was disillusioned with the fashion world, which is why I went back and did my master's, because I was just, I always said that if I became a millionaire, I would become an artist. I never became a millionaire because I haven't done that yet. But it's on the list at some point. But you know, I was like, why would you need $1 million to go back to art school? You need to just go back to art school and do what you really want to do. So yeah, long-winded answer to that was it. I always knew I was, if I'm allowed to be a little bit big-headed, I always knew I was extraordinary in the creative field. I just didn't know where it should be focused, because I was maybe quite, I mean, in your bio, you talk about autism, and not autism, you talk about dyslexia. That's right. I think in some ways, I think I have dyslexia too, but I also think I might be slightly autistic in some ways. I think there's different levels, and I have, I'm an introvert, extrovert. My younger years was very much an introvert, debilitating, I would say, because I was so emotional. So it took me many years to be really confident in who I was. So I could never bring that extraordinary talent through, because I needed my personality to be able to come, to be able to handle, like I said, the backlash that comes with being a creative or being in the public space. You know, it's a very vulnerable putting your work out in the world, and I need to not be able to break down and cry. I need to be indifferent to any outcome, whether it's a success or failure. Mm-hmm. So I always knew I was an artist, but didn't have the ability to be able to handle that.
Okay.
Have you gotten backlash from the work that you've done with your art practice?
Yeah. But I'm quite good at utilizing that and using it for my benefit. And often they say things that they say the things that are in line with what I'm trying to say anyway, which is the irony, but they're coming from a negative perspective.
Mm-hmm. So you've learned how to use it for your own art, like for your own fuel to make your art even further. So
yeah.
Okay.
And like even back on my master's, sorry, frog again. I picked the wrong drink. I went for the coffee and not the hot lemon. Back at university, I mean, I was 33. So one of the oldest people back on my master's, we were in a kind of a show and tell scenario where a couple of the other master's courses came in, and I full on got slated by some of the students. It just turned into an absolute ruckus. And it was quite amusing because at this point I hadn't said anything. It was just other artists. So my whole work became a massive debate of whether it was art or not. And the mere fact it was in conversation meant that it was art.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I concluded that conversation. But I mean, it's hard to hear when, you know, you have full on eloquent, incredible humans at one of the best schools in the world, literally ripping at you. It's just like, wait. But it's, I mean, we need those things if you're going to put your work out into the world and be proud of it.
What was the piece that they were debating, or like what did it look like?
Well, I did a performance piece dressed as Red Riding Hood, and I put out some playing cards in front of me, and I asked the audience to pick up a playing card, and on it was a secret, and then I put on the wolf mask that represented the secret, and then I gave the secret to the audience. So intimate secrets about those relationships that were in front of me. And I positioned myself in like a picnic scenario where I was sat on the floor and everybody else was above me, which was even more vulnerable because if you know about power play, if people are above you, I find this interesting in a psychological point of view when I'm in an argument scenario. If you position yourself taller than someone else, you tend to elevate your position and your opinion a lot more. So by putting myself on the floor, I purposely made myself vulnerable, which then turned into this shit show of an argument. But it was good because I could handle it. I was 33, you know, it's a little bit having maturity, whereas doing fine art as a 21-year-old, I would have just probably burst into tears.
Yeah, and I've probably had a very hard time getting back into art.
Yeah. Just very different.
Oh, go finish. I'm sorry.
No, it's just very different, like doing my bachelor's in fashion. I mean, I was a really naive kid, you know. I thought I was, you know, like you do when you're young, you think, oh, you know everything, and I'm just like, I had no idea what the world was like. So, you know,
especially early 20s, that's the hard time because you want to be independent, but you're nowhere close to being able to survive on your own without eating just top ramen and peanut butter sandwiches, basically.
Yeah, and we're on one of the worst courses in history. Like to do a fashion degree where I went, I mean, they killed us. I mean, it was unbearable, and just the political and vulnerability you put yourself through, it was horrible.
Mm-hmm. What's one of your favorite pieces that you've done to date?
Ooh, that's a difficult question. It's always the last piece that you do, right? Do you find that with say a written piece of work that you've done, it's always like the last interview that you've done or however you write? Catherine, do you say the same? Is it your last piece?
I don't know. I don't like a lot of my own work. I'll do it and I'll be like, well, I should have done this way better. But I do really like, and I think I like the pieces that I'm working on lately, like the video piece where I'm pregnant and I have the milk dripping down in the bathtub. That's a piece that I'm like, that I hit the nail on the tub because I hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
To me, that was like so true to how I was feeling. I was being vulnerable. That's my favorite piece because I think it was just so what I had in my head, it came out to be exactly what I was feeling. But I think a lot of my performance artwork I'm self-conscious about because I always think, well, I could have done this better. versus a video piece where I can really go back and adjust it if I want to.
Mm. I mean, that's a wonderful thing about making, I mean, I love making video pieces because you that control aspect that you bring into it. Gosh, I would actually say it's a cross between my design stuff and my fine art work. So from a design aspect, there's a piece called Mad Worlds that's 2,000 hours of illustration. It's absolute bonkers. And for those who don't know, it's a mural scale wallpaper that repeats. So you can buy it as a mural, or you can buy it literally to go around the whole entire room. It's 150 inches by 100 inches, and not much of it repeats. It's literally complete original context from beginning to end. And it's about, it started during, it was preconceived during COVID, but obviously came into full like embodiment during the quiet time, and dealing and understanding depression. What does that mean? The dark side of being alone, life, death. So it's like there's like all these skulls, there's like butterflies, beauty, transformation. It's like, it's, if a piece was to see inside my brain, that would be what it looks like. And I've printed it black on black as one of the colorways. So it's like super, like, you don't even know it's there. So it's kind of a secret in some ways. That's one of my favorite design pieces, just by, I've never been able to, from a design practice, to get everything out. And then I think from my fine art practice, these new masks that I'm making are pretty special. They're really, I've bought masks from all around the world, and they're on my walls. And the Romanian masks in particular are quite gruesome. A lot of them were made, obviously folklore, but are warnings to put them, you know, people will put them on outside their houses as a warning. So, I mean, maybe that's saying something about me, but the last few ex-lovers are just disgustingly grotesque. They're fabulous. And the more uglier they are and the more destructive they are, the more I love them.
Which I think is interesting, because then it makes me wonder about like our American culture is, do you see a difference between your past lovers from the different places that you've lived? Like, is the American men that I'm assuming you're dating, maybe they're not American, but they're just like a little bit more grotesque than your previous lovers because of the American culture?
I think as you get older and the longer that you're single, the more, if you're lucky, the bigger lessons you've learned. And then you start noticing similar patterns of behavior, not in the men, I'm talking about obviously yourself. And you're just like, so the grotesqueness is about me and those American men, not necessarily about being American. It's just like, wow. I mean, I've had epiphanies, like, you know, as I'm evolving, like and I'm so proud that I've learned these lessons. And I guess you learn your boundaries in a relationship. So no, it's got nothing to do whether they're Italian or whether they're this or that. I mean, that definitely adds to the flavor or the colorizations of the masks of what they're bringing in. But yeah, I think it's more to do with me in this time, in this place. They're pretty exciting.
And you don't have them up yet, right?
No.
Website? Okay. So that will
be coming. They're coming soon.
Okay, great.
I think actually Ryan from Tag Gallery is going to do an issue on me in September for his new magazine. I think they'll probably launch in there.
Okay, perfect.
So yeah, I'll do some crazy weird stuff, but they are magnificent. Like in a kind of like, oh my God, they're so horrible.
Well, I'm excited to see them. When they come out, we'll post them too, so that our listeners can keep up with your new work.
Yeah, but it's just like, and it goes back to your piece, Catherine, about, you know, do you think that, you know, as a woman and our evolution with our bodies, that are you most proud of that piece because you have completed what you were designed to do, which is be a mum? Like, is there any feeling towards that in the piece?
I think so. I think there's two sides to it, because I have always thought, as a female artist, I've been very much aware that a lot of successful female artists have never had children and have never gotten married, because I feel like they're dedicated to their practice. And so I've always been worried that if I became a mother, then I would lose some kind of value as a artist. And so there's this fear of transforming into a mom, but then as a woman being excited with the body changing too, and being worried that, like, is my body not going to be able to do what it's supposed to do? But then it being able to do that was also a very exciting thing. And it made me feel a lot like an animal, almost like breastfeeding. It made me feel very much like a cow. And so it made me almost realize, like, humans aren't that far from animals, because of how my body had changed. And that was something that I had never thought about before.
Primal, animalistic.
Yes, yeah, very primal. So it was Samuel does not like that piece at all.
Oh, really?
What, the belly piece?
Yeah, the belly piece.
No, the piece that I don't like, just because it looks so gross, is the one where you have the stockings up and all the eggs, and you're smashing the eggs.
Oh yeah. Well, there's an element. I don't know if your new masks, Katie, are like this, but I like this kind of very grotesque, visceral feeling to my new work, because I think childbirth and your period and being a woman is very like not gross, but like very fluid and body, and it just has this body element that I'm enjoying right now.
It goes back to so like anger as an emotion is really important, and we're told to suppress that from an like, don't get angry, you know, calm down, and it's like anger is a really important thing to kind of like really explore. And if you do not allow yourself to go into those darker spaces, you can't evolve as a human. In the dating world, they call it the nice guy syndrome. So what you have is what gets described as a nice guy is a human that has anger under all these complexities of masks. So when you start breaking that human down, they sometimes can be worse than the bad boys. So a bad boy will tell you who they are from the get-go. They were like, I'm going to do this to you, that to you, and I'm going to walk away. And that's wonderful, because they're not trying to mask something up from you or hide something from you. The nice guy, you know, all of a sudden stops talking to you, and you're just like, wait, where did this come from? You were buying me flowers last week. So take that context and put that back into us being human and not being able to explore the more grotesque aspects of being a mum or evolution of periods and women, or don't talk about it, it just means that they're just frustration builds up, which is then the explosion of the anger. So I'm very much interested in exploring those darker things of oneself. And I think that's where I'm starting to feel happier, because I'm allowing myself that space. And I think COVID too allows you a lot of time to reflect and to work through things. And I'm very grateful for this time, because I think I've evolved and I'm going to maybe make better choices. So along with a crazy explanation about exploring darker sides. Sorry.
But I loved everything you said. You said it way better than I did, like very poetically, like, no, I want to explore the darker side, the side that we were told to not talk about.
Yeah.
When we were younger. Mm-hmm.
And it's fascinating, and there's so much beauty in it without having to harm a hair on anyone's head. It's just, I think that's where I'm feeling the passion for my life, is living in the dark side of the bright side.
I love that your business name and everything is Brightside, but then you're making this artwork in the dark side. That's I love that poetry in that.
Well, we can't, again, we're taught all the wrong things. You can't find happiness without really deconstructing who you are, what do you want. And it's taking in all those things and not dwelling in it. It's not dwelling in the debilitating, I still get very emotional, like I'm just very an emotional person, and it's not criticizing myself for that. If I allow the time and space, I'm then move through it, and it's wonderful.
Going through all your artwork, it's really fascinating, and just I love getting stories behind all the art pieces, and I think it's amazing just looking at all of your wallpaper and how detailed it is really something. So if anyone has, after they listen to this, make sure you definitely go to both websites, because you have Welcome to the Brightside, and then you have katiebrightside.com, and you can really get a good idea of what we've been talking about. There's two different sides of it. There's this really because you have a lot of like fancy pictures, or like fanciful pictures, I guess, with like the Disney characters. I was looking at that one with the heart.
Yeah.
Where one is like a Disney characters. That's a really cool piece. I like that one a lot.
Thank you. If you actually look at some of the illustrations, they're not so Disney-like. Yeah. I've taken like Minnie and Mickey and turned them into Sid and Nancy. Kind of like is like some crazy anti-Hollywood celebrity.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, I found it fascinating. So thank you for sitting with us and talking to us about it.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Much. I'm a fan of all of your work. So I really appreciate you coming on the podcast and sharing a little bit more behind your work. It's very interesting.
And I'm so excited to work with you in the future. I feel like there is going to be some sort of collaboration in our fine art practices that they can definitely merge in some ways.
Definitely. I'm excited for that.
Yeah, you really should, because you guys both like performance pieces. So
yeah,
you guys can
there's some epic video pieces in our future, I'm sure.
I think so. I really think so. And it's your materiality too that I'm like that I've used in my work, but in a different context. It's just like, I'm looking forward to having those conversations about how we can kind of, mirror each other. So thank you for having me. I'm super excited. I think it might have been the 10th coffee that I had, but never mind.
That's okay. You're well caffeinated.
Yes. Thank you both.
If you are looking for our episodes, I just redid the missartworld.com webpage so that you can find, if you're interested in listening, there's all the different links to SoundCloud, Apple Music, but then we also have a section where the videos on YouTube are posted so that if you visit missartworld.com, you can look for those as well and find anything that you're looking for. Also on our Instagram page, I always post what the next episode is going to be, and when they are dropped, you'll get that posting too. So if you're interested in following us on Instagram, that is Miss Art World Podcast.
And again, if you are looking to follow Katie Brightside, just go to welcometothebrightside.com, or you can follow the other one, which is katiebrightside.com. And is there another place you'd like to send anyone, Katie?
Send them to Miss Art World.
Well, thanks, guys.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.